Hello, everybody. Welcome along to the second of our TWTD Blue Monday collaborations. And you will see by the man in the large picture that you probably want me to shut up and for him to start speaking very, very soon, because you will see former Ipswich Town player and current under-23 manager coach. I'm sure he'll fill us in on that. Kieron Dyer. Kieron, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. I hear that I'm the second guest. Who was the first guest?
Phil?
Who was the first? Oh, okay. Of course, he could be my boss. So yeah, great first podcast.
So, Kieron, the idea of these collaborations is that Phil's obviously up with the current stuff, and Blue Monday, we like to kind of wallow in the past and whatnot. So what we're going to do, if it's okay by you, because I live permanently in the past, I'm going to ask you some questions about your great career. We'll focus just on the Ipswich stuff. And then, if you're cool with that, Phil's going to ask you some stuff about coaching and about what's going on down there now. First question I always love to ask footballers, because we have our perception from the outside. For those people who've never saw you play, just kind of, picked up after you finished, how would you describe yourself as a player?
Versatile, quick, good IQ, loads of energy, an exciting player, a player that gets people off their seats, and I think I was very fortunate enough that when I started my career, I was in a very gifted and blessed team that helped me show them qualities and made me go on to bigger and better things. So, yeah, I sound like I would be about £150 million player the way I just described myself, but I wouldn't go that far. But yeah, I was decent. The best way I can describe, we're going to talk about my Ipswich years and as a young kid, and it's always, obviously you can win Supporters Player of the Year, but they always say like the main one for a player is when they win the PFA Players Player, when your peers vote for you. And when I retired, Jamie Carragher and Craig Bellamy both text me, and it wasn't just because I've retired. They genuinely meant it when they said when we were all young kids, I was the best of the lot. And from Carragher, that meant a lot because he obviously had a young Steven Gerrard, a young Michael Owen. So it just goes to show that I always say a big what if with my career, because if they're talking about I was the best of the young kids, and you see Frank and Rio and Stevie G and all these players having 100 caps for their countries and Champions Leagues, and yes, I had a decent career, but nowhere near did I have the career that what my early potential showed, which is in a way is one of the big, like I said, what ifs and big regrets, I suppose.
Kieron, we asked David Johnson about you, and he said he was an absolute natural. Now, do you take that as a bit of a backhanded compliment? And can you talk to us, how easy did it come for you? And can you talk to us about the sort of tension, the dynamic between hard work and natural ability? Because whenever we have the Messi and Ronaldo conversation, it's always, one just had it natural and the other one worked for it. Did it all come naturally for you when you were a young player?
Again, now, because I'm in my coaching journey, I always say the better players, they take instructions in, you only have to tell them once and they get it. And yes, I would say I had natural ability. I think that we've talked about my pace, and Sir Bobby, I'm sure we'll talk about, said I had two hearts, and 4 lungs. He was like, your energy is on a different platform. So my physical gifts were naturally there, but I think I was one of them players that a coach only had to tell me once and I would pick it up straight away. And that's what I say to the players here. I say, if you can take the information, I don't have to keep repeating the same messages and you're getting it. It shows to me that you've got so much more room to develop. So again, yeah, I agree what David Johnson says. And what is a great example. I always bring Frank Lampard up. So we all probably made our England debut in front of Frank Lampard. He was probably one of the last ones to make their England under-21 debut. We all made our England under-21 debut before him. And listen, he obviously, the career he's had is Chelsea's all-time top goal scorer, but his was all down to work ethic. He wasn't, I would say, a naturally blessed footballer. But after training every day, bag of balls, bang, bang, bang. And when you see him on the football pitch, every time he got a chance from 25 yards, you just know it's a goal. That's not luck, that's practice. And even, I think these early days at West Ham, he got labelled as a fat and couldn't move. Also, every day after training, he'd do working on fast feet just to try and get that 5% quicker, sharper. And look at the career he's had. So I do agree with Jono with regards to myself. And when you do have the Messi and the Ronaldo, listen, Ronaldo's got lots of natural ability, but Messi for me is that's just God-given ability. And Ronaldo, you see when he takes off his top and he's just. I know Ronaldo spends probably about £1 million on his body and the people to look after his body and the right nutritionists and all the latest technology. And yeah, he's why I love Ronaldo is because he's worked. Listen, yes, some of it's natural, but he's also put in the work as well, and that's why he's won so many Ballon d'Ors, which is all credit to him.
You already mentioned versatility, and it's kind of cart before horse the way you came into the team, because it was like you already had a place in the team before you had a position. So fullback, wing back, central midfield, winger, anywhere really down that right-hand side or midfield, defence, whatever. How does that work? Is that a positive, having a shirt before you've even got a nailed down position?
See, I always used to think versatility was a positive. I just thought that a manager could trust you to fill in numerous positions in case there was an injury. I take my Ipswich career. I was only at Ipswich really for 2.5 seasons. I played left back, I played right back, I played left wing back, I played right wing back, I played all of the central midfielders, whether it be as a 2, whether it be as a 3. I played right wing, I played left wing, I played off the striker. So I played everywhere in and I always used to think that is a blessing in disguise. But then when I got left out of the Euro 2000 squad with Kevin Keegan, when he came to that old dreaded knock on the door and you're basically waiting, you're with your eye like through the thing when you hear Nice coming, and I see him knocking on Rio's door, and I thought, Rio's not made the squad. And then all of a sudden I could hear the footsteps getting close. I thought, here come the dreaded news. And he's pulled me in and he said, I honestly don't know what your best position is. And he see it as a kind of, I really don't know if you're a right back, a right winger, a centre midfielder. So it went against me. And even later on when we talk, even with the Bobby Robson fallout with the right wing, it was like, as my career went on, I was always in a way like the fall guy. Kieron can play there. We've got a strong team, so okay, Kieron, yes, he wants to play here, but he can do a great job at the right wing, or he can do a great job at left wing, or he could do a great job. So I found that towards the later part of my career when you really want to nail down a position and get that consistency, because when you're playing so many different positions, it's hard to get that consistent level going. So at the start, when I was a young lad, I was buzzing to play anywhere, to be in the first team. But as my career developed, I hated that I could play anywhere because I was often the fall guy.
Fascinating. In your sort of breakthrough season, you played 50 games and you're still a teenager. If you were managing yourself now in 2021 and you had this talent who, like you said, play anywhere, great physical gifts, would you be playing him for 50 games that earlier in his career?
It's a good debate. Again, if you look at, especially people with real pace, if you look at my career, Jonathan Woodgate's career, Ledley King's career, Michael Owen's career, like I said, I played about 100 and odd games for Ipswich, and like I said, 2 seasons really. The first season when I broke in, which was the half a season, it was always me and Richard Naylor on the bench, and I'd get the odd start. But to play two 2 years of, like you said, 50 games a season. Not even Premier League players do that now. They get rested, they get rotated. And why I mentioned them players in particular is because we were so high intense with our speed and energy. If you look at the later part of our careers where we couldn't stay fit and we kept breaking down and our body failed us, that could have been a crucial part of why we were breaking down, because we played so many games at such a young age. And we're not just talking we were plodders, we were real high intense. Like, one of the big things I always used to laugh at is that in my Newcastle days, because of my body language at times, people thought that I was being lazy and that. And James Milner used to always be the model pro of, oh my God, no one's run further than James Milner. I used to batter James Milner for distances every game. I would be the most distance, I'd be the highest intense. But just because my body language gave off this vibe that, oh, he's not really putting a shift in it, it was crazy. So, yeah, if I was a manager now and today and I had, like, say, I'm just looking at some of our kids and they were breaking through, I would definitely rotate some of them, especially the younger kids, because you're still growing. Again, there's some players, like if they had no disrespect, a Paul Scholes type or a Frank Lampard, where they're not relying on that athleticism, that real pace and energy, and they were more technical, then I think you can get away with them playing 50 games a season, if you know what I mean, because it's not overexerting their body like it does to someone who is absolutely rapid and does over 500, 600 metres of sprint distance in a game, where we're big on data, and as a coach, I'm big on the data. I always see the data, and we're saying now for fullbacks, even in the first team, we're looking at if anyone does over 250 metres of sprint distance, we're saying that's what you should be trying to achieve as a fullback. But when you're talking about in our days when we're hitting 400, 500s at such a young age, it's like it is bonkers.
Kieron, when you came into that last season at Ipswich, you already said, "Oh, I was just buzzing to play in the first season." How did your expectations change? Because you were a good player, and you knew you were a good player as well at that point. Were you then? You're playing against players that have come down from the Premier League. Were you expecting to be dominating games even at that young age in that sort of last season? How did your expectations for yourself change?
So when I touched on, so in the first season when I broke into the first team, I was basically still a youth team player, a scholar as you call it. I was in my second year, my second and final year. I played the game against Crystal Palace on Boxing Day when George Burley told me to go home and not clean the boots. And like I said, I had the odd. I think I started against Sheffield. Well, I know I started even Sheffield United in the playoff game that season away when Mick Stockwell scores to make it 1-1. So I had the odd starter in here. But you do kind of have your doubts, and it's been well documented that I was guaranteed a scholar. I was like the golden boy of the schoolboy program coming in. I'd been guaranteed a scholar from Tony Dable. George Burley comes in, says, I'm not guaranteeing nothing. I need to see these players. So I was already thinking, the manager of the first team doesn't fancy me. So it was like when I got into the building full time, it was like I had to prove to George that I'm worth my place. He came to see me. I was a schoolboy. I played in the youth team. We played Arsenal as well when I played really well. And we played Chelsea. I played really well. He offered me a scholar, but I still had it in the back of my mind. It was like fuel to fire me is that I don't think he's really fancying me like the way he did Neil Midgley. I think Neil Midgley and John Kennedy and Chris Keeble were in my age group. I think they had a few first team appearances as well. So my whole first year as a scholar, I wanted to prove that I was better than them, which I think I did prove. And then when I was a second year scholar, I don't know if you can remember this, Stuart Niven makes his debut before me. Stuart Niven was again in my youth team. So I'm playing with Stuart Niven in the reserves and youth team, and I'm better than him every game. And then they play a game at Sheffield United. He makes his debut. I think Richard Naylor makes his debut that game as well. think it might have been Sheffield United, and we win 3-1. So I was buzzing because I'm an Ipswich fan that we've won the game, but I'm absolutely fuming that Stuart Niven is playing in front of me. I'm going, this is no disrespect to Stuart Niven, because I really got on well with Stuart Niven. But again, that was where you kind of use every kind of slight. I was just like, I cannot believe he's playing in front of me. And I was fed up with the size being brought up to it, because what was so pleasing for me is that when I came into the building full time as a youth team player, when we got put on our weights program, I didn't realise how strong I was. Right, when it came to chin ups and chest pressing, I was up there in the top 3 or 4, and I was only like 9 stone 5 and 5 foot, probably about 5'4" at the time. So I was thinking, they can't use the strength thing against me, because I'm playing in the reserves and that was when it was the real South East Counties League, where we were playing the teams like the Wimbledon and all the London clubs who had proper seasoned pros in their reserve teams. And so it was weird that even though I was having some success at the club, even I made my debut and I was in the squad, I always felt like I still had to prove myself. And I think the biggest turning point for me was then I went to Malaysia for the World Cup. It was the under-20s World Cup. Richard Wright was meant to be in the squad, and I think George pulled him out because he played a whole season and he wanted to protect him. And I went, and then obviously when the squad list came through and you see Michael Owen, who just scored his first Premier League goal about 3 weeks before at Wimbledon. I remember watching that game on Match of the Day, and we've got Jamie Carragher from Liverpool, and Danny Murphy was at Crewe but was now signing for Liverpool, and John Curtis at the time we all knew about John Curtis. He was a Man United boy, but he was like meant to be the best of the best. And me going there now, and even Richie Humphreys. Remember Richie Humphreys from Sheffield Wednesday? He had an unbelievable first season in the Premier League. He scored some world-class goals. So here I was from Ipswich Town, and I'm now with the elite of what I thought with the young players of the Premier League. And I was like, first couple of training sessions, I was like, I'm better than these. That's the kind of... honestly, I thought, all right, Michael Owen was very special, but everybody else, I thought, I'm as good. So that season, when I came back to pre-season, that being with the Premier League, and like you said, the teams that were getting relegated from the Premier League, I knew I could hold my own, and that put me in good stead. And it's quite funny because the first couple of training sessions when I came back, and it was pre-season, and George, I was playing right back that season because Gus was injured, and I must have said something back to George, and he was like, "You've been away with England, think you know it all," and da-da-da-da-da. And the way they used to ground, obviously it was a lot more animation and swear words, but the way they could ground us back down was, we can't even do that no more. And I just thought, like I said, I was very lucky that I did have George and I did have the senior players that they could ground you. And obviously, as my career went, and the more famous and the more better, and the England, I lost that sense of grounding because of all the money and what comes along with it, which again is a great shame. But yeah, Ipswich, I could never get ahead of myself, especially with Simon Milton. Simon Milton was like my mentor. What a guy he was. And I would say Milt's biggest strength is that, like I said, he could fit into any clique. So you'd have the Geraint Williams, George Williams, and the older crew playing Hearts. He could sit there for 2 hours having a conversation. He'd come at the back of the bus with me and David Johnson and Richard Wright, and he was just an incredible guy. And yeah, it's just a shame he's still not at this football club. But he's still one of my best friends, who I call a real true friend, and I'll never forget what he did for me on my journey at Ipswich Town. So
in that last season, we start to see sort of the Newcastle version of Kieron Dyer, this central midfielder who's, I don't know how to, a bit of everything really. Number 6, number 8, number 10, not going to sit in one place, going to use your physicality to move the ball around the pitch. There's Matt Holland there as well, so you're the playmaker and he's the sort of runner. And then Jim Magilton lands in there, and again, out you go to the right wing. But it's a tasty midfield. It's you and Bobby Petr, so you can give Petr balance because you're as quick on that side, and Magilton drops in. Just what about the influence of Magilton? And you kind of, I guess, thought you've got the central midfield, you can run the team from there, and you're back out on the right wing to end your Ipswich career.
Well, again, what was great about Matt Holland and what was great about George Burley was that we were very flexible, that we could go from a 4 to a 3 at the back. He did it with Matt Holland quite a bit. He did it with Steve Sedgley before that. Steve Sedgley would be the middle of the 2 centre-halves, so he'd be the third centre-half. If it wasn't going well, we'd push Steve Sedgley into midfield, shove one of the midfielders out wide into a midfield 4. And I can remember, like I was talking about my first proper season, I started off the season at right back, and it was Brian Hamilton at the time and who said, you know what, we're wasting Kieron as a right winger, as a right back. And he said to George, we need to play Kieron and Matt Holland in centre midfield together, which was a big call at the time because George Williams was kind of, he was the captain. Matt Holland might have had the captain's armband, but he was the real captain of the club. And George backed Brian Hamilton on it. And then basically from that day on, I went on and, like you said, I became a centre midfielder. And then my last season, I started off with, it was Matt Holland sitting and me bombing on and using my energy. But then with Matt Holland sitting, it kind of took away from Matt Holland's strengths because Matt is a box-to-box player. He was always going to score more goals than me from midfield. And like you said, I was quite adaptable with that. I'm one of them players who is quite comfortable on the ball and get the ball off the centre halves and start dictating the play. So I think George deserves a bit of credit because he tinkered that. So not many people know I was like the defensive kind of midfielder getting us playing, and Matt Holland was using his energy to score all his goals. And then obviously another thing that George was unbelievable at was his recruitment. As a manager, I've been quite lucky to see how the new manager in Paul Cook, and I was around Mick McCarthy, and you live and die by your recruitment. And George Burley's recruitment, and when he got Jim Magilton in, I'd never even heard of Jim Magilton. I swear to God, I'm like, Jim Magilton, a Sheffield, I think it was Sheffield Wednesday. I was like, he's Sheffield Wednesday reserve team player. What the hell is George thinking? And then, like, he came in and was just, he was incredible. And there was a lot of games, though, where we would play the 3 of us in midfield. We'd play 3 at the back. And me, Jim, and Matt, and that, for me, that midfield 3 had a bit of everything. But again, like you said, I think George realised that Bobby Petr caught fire in the last part of that season. And we had to have Bobby Petr in the team. You can't have Bobby Petr playing as a wing back. So we would resort back to a 4. And he played Matt, Jim, and me on the right. And again, if you look at that midfield 4, it's got a bit of everything. And yeah, how we didn't get promoted that season was criminal, really. To lose at home to Crewe was the game that killed us, which was, I was so crap that day as well. It's still, obviously, I broke my leg. I broke my leg towards 3/4 of that season, and then I remember we played Bristol City at home on Sky, and we won 1-0. And George and Jim scores the winner, and we were basically there. We just had to beat Crewe, and I remember we won the game. But I was like, because it was the first real injury I had, and it says people used to say it takes you a while to get over injuries, and because you're young and you're youthful exuberance, you go, it might happen to you. And I can remember playing against Bristol, and I was thinking, I was so crap. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't get my head around it. I was so bad. But we won the game, and then I thought, okay, at least I got 90 minutes under my belt. And then, like you said, I don't know if it was the next game or 2 games later, we played Crewe at home. And like you said, we had a midfield of me, Jim, Bobby, Matt, and they had Jermaine Wright. And Jermaine Wright bossed the game. I was hopeless again. I started to question myself, like, oh my God, I'm never going to come back and be any good again. That was that bad. And I always say to Jammer, I got him his move to Ipswich, really, because I was so crap that day. He came in and replaced me, and the rest is history, as they say. But yeah, I really started to go and what is going on here. So that game against Crewe really hit me because obviously I wanted to play in the Premiership with my hometown club, and if we'd have beat Crewe, we'd have done it. And I'm quite self-critical after the game. There's no beating around the bush with me. If I'm crap, I'll tell it how it was, and I was awful. And I can remember then it was the game against Sheffield United when it was we had to win and hope that
Bradford.
Paul Jewell would fuck things up over his part of the thing. And I've played really well that day. I got Sky Man in the match, and actually I think I scored. Did I score the first goal of that game? I might have had 2 assists. I think Jim puts a great ball over the top for me. I run. I love the keeper. So, and I ended up crying because obviously we knew we didn't make it to the Premier League. We didn't go up automatically, but deep down, I was looking forward to the playoffs because that was the first time since I broke my leg where I felt I'm back. And Bolton. How we lost to Bolton over the 2 legs. We absolutely, Jono killed us in the first leg. I always say to Jono, bloody hell, you scored 30 goals a season, but you had about 30 chances against Bolton at home and couldn't even take one of them. But just one. Kieron, it was just never meant to be.
Do you think that's the game you're most remembered for at Ipswich, the second leg, where it kind of looked like towards the end of the game, you started to play off the cuff and thought, I'm going to try and drag the team through here. What happened in that game? Because you score, and I don't think I ever even saw you head the ball, let alone score a header from outside the box.
I didn't even know I could head the ball either, to be fair. That was probably the first time I ever headed the ball and to score from. I honestly, like you said, when I went to, we take an early lead, we are pummeling Bolton, and then they go 2-1 up, and then when I scored the header, I think I look up for my mum, and you could just see the ecstasy in my face. And even though we went to extra time, what happened with Jim the following year, I thought that was destined for me, that I am going to score a hat-trick. I just had this confidence that I'm going to score the hat-trick. I'm going to win this game. I really thought that. I'm going to put this team on, because you remember they had a good team as well. They had good Johnson, and they had the Johansson who went and done well in the Premier League as well at Charlton. They had a very good team. So, but like you said, I felt, like I said, after the Sheffield United game and the way the game, me scoring in the last minute to send extra time, I really thought that I was going to lead us to Wembley and then lead us to the Premier League. I loved that kind of, because I know the lads were lagging. I just had a 6-week break from a broken leg. I felt fresh I felt really fresh. I was good to go. I was buzzing for extra time. I was thinking, this is made for me. And obviously then when they scored again on the break, and then Matt Holland scored the consolation late on, that's when I realised that this could be my last game for the club. And that's when I went to the North Stand and gave my boots and my shirt. And I was thinking, you know what, this is a good way to say goodbye. The club will get a lot of good money for me, and for me to progress my career to the next level, then this will probably be the end for me. And I thought the same for Richard Wright as well. I thought it's probably going to be the end for him as well. But Richard Wright see something I didn't and stayed, the lucky git. And I went, and then bloody 18 months later, I'm looking up at Ipswich Town, 5th in the league, and we're in mid-table struggling. I'm like, you can't write this. It's just, I'm just cursed. But
Kieron, even today, when I run a championship YouTube channel, and we talk to people about recruitment, and I always use you as the example. Actually, I say it doesn't matter if you sell your best player. It depends what do you do with the money afterwards? And obviously, it was Gary Croft, John McGreal, Marcus Stewart, Jermaine Wright. Can you kind of rest easy, because you're an Ipswich boy, you're an Ipswich fan, that your legacy was those players that were then the backbone of the next year's team?
No, I can't. I seriously can't. They got to play. Obviously, I got to play Wembley in an FA Cup semi-final, and obviously for my country. But I was there the day when Ipswich got promoted, and I'd give away all my England caps for that experience. Wow. Honestly, it was just like, in a way, it's crazy. How can you be an Ipswich fan and all your friends are there and you're absolutely buzzing, but deep down you're going, fucking lucky pricks. And you're jealous. I'm actually jealous of my friends. Like, it's weird to explain that. Like, I'm gutted, but they've just achieved what I want them to achieve, but I'm gutted because I'm not part of it. But then I'm at a Premier League club, I'm playing for England, I'm on probably quadruple the wages that all of them are on, if you know what I mean. And still I'm like, I'm absolutely gutted. Absolutely gutted. So I like to say that when I'm putting on an act and say, yeah, they wouldn't have got promoted if they didn't sell me. And listen, if I'd have stayed, you never know, we would have maybe failed again in the playoffs. But yeah, I've got very mixed emotions about it because I really wanted to. I've seen what Steven Gerrard, he's had his moments with his hometown clubs. You just think about leaving Jack Grealish now at Aston Villa. He brings them back up, and Richard Wright has sampled that. And I am envious and jealous, and but again, like I said, if I'd have stayed, we might not. Like you said, if I was to play a five-a-side match against them four players on my own, I'm not gonna beat them. So if I would have stayed, do I think I was a better player than them four? I honestly do think I was a better player, but the four of them together were a lot better than me. So again, it was a great piece of business from the club. But again, if I'd have known what I know now, would Newcastle have been my choice of clubs? I would have probably played hardball and gone to a club that I really wanted to go to, because the Newcastle move came out of the blue, to be honest. I thought I was going to Arsenal or Leeds at the time.
Wasn't Juventus one as well?
Yeah, Juventus. Well, Juventus were a club that were always watching me. Del Piero even said Kieron Dyer is a champion, he should come and sign for Juventus, which I've still got the paper cutting of that. I bring that out from time to time. So, by the way, Del Piero thought I was not bad, but yeah, I would never have gone to a foreign country. I was a mummy's boy. Look, as soon as I left my mum and went to Newcastle, it started to go tits up for me. So could you imagine me in Italy on my own? God knows what would have happened to me. So, but yeah, it probably, I know that Leeds bidded 5 million and Arsenal bidded 5 million, and obviously Newcastle blew them out of the water for 6.5 million. And honestly, when George called me in before training, I got an extended break because I had England duties. I ended up on the bench for the first team against Bulgaria, which again is so much like I look at, because I get embarrassed when you talk about Ipswich legends. I said I cannot be an Ipswich legend because I don't think I had an Alex Maffey moment or was part of a winning team with regards to promotions or the 78. And then you've got club icons, and I'm going, am I a club icon? But then when I break down my Ipswich career, I achieved a hell of a lot in the 2.5 years. Like I said, so if you take away the first half of the year when I was in and out of the team I was used to, so when I was an actual professional at the football club, my first year I started off at a right back. I get in the PFA team of the year as a right back. So I'm voted by my fellow players in the league. They voted me and Tarico in the team that year. Tarico was left back, I was right back. We're the only two Ipswich players that were represented in the team, which was some achievement. I also made my England under-21 debut that season as a 17, 18-year-old, which, again, is 3 years beneath the age. I made an England B international. I was an England B international. And then my last season with Ipswich, I make the team of the year again as a centre midfielder now. And you're thinking, bloody hell, that's some achievement to go back-to-back team of the years by your fellow pros. One as a right back, one as a centre midfielder. I got called up into the England squad. I was going to make my debut against France. Glenn Hoddle calls me into the England squad. And that's when he obviously came out with the controversial stuff he did about this is disabled children. So Howard Wilkinson comes in. Obviously, he really wanted to win the game. He went experienced. So I would have made my England debut as a championship player, as you could say. And then at the end of the season, the big publication was the 4-4-2, and I think I got voted by all the managers of the league the best player in the league. And I love that one because Craig Bellamy was number 3. And Richard Wright was number 2, and I was number 1. So that's my claim to fame, that all these managers thought I was better than you two. So I lived off that for quite some time as well. So yeah, like I said, even though my Ipswich career was short, I achieved so much. Like, some players could be at a football club for 10 years and not achieve some of the individual accolades that I achieved at Ipswich, and that's something to be proud of.
Right, a couple more from me, and then we'll go to Phil, who's sitting very, very patiently.
Right.
Can I just talk about a couple of my favourite goals? Just indulge me for a second, if you can remember them, because I obviously played hundreds of games. Manchester City away, where famously you score the winner in the last minute, and you're actually in the wrong position. You were told to hold your spot in centre midfield. And the chip against Stockport, I was behind the goal. That seems the most ridiculous shot choice. Was that you being a bit of an entertainer, or was there some strategy behind trying to chip the goalkeeper when he's 6'3" and you're in the box?
The Stockport goal, I'm glad you brought that up. Not many people know that, but that was my favourite ever Ipswich Town goal as well. And I always, Titus and Matt Holland, I wasn't a natural finisher. And what happened, because I used to burst from midfield, what was so hard for me, why I missed so many one-on-ones, is that because I was so quick and run thing, I have so much time. Do you know how many things go through my head? Should I dink it? Should I siphon it? Should I take it around the keeper? And by the time you get to the keeper, your brain's so scrambled, I just end up missing the target. The easiest goals, I always say, the easiest goals is when you haven't got time to think. It's just an instinctive finish and that. But like I said, because of the type of player I was and playing in the position I was, it seemed that all my chances happened that I would burst through, leave everyone for dust, and I've got like 5-6 seconds of thinking. And that one, what I loved against Stockport, was that as soon as the ball come through, I was thinking, I am chipping the keeper. I don't care if he stays on his line. I'm thinking, I'm not changing. Honestly, I was going in my head going, I am chipping this keeper. If he'd have stayed on his line, I was fucked, because I'd have still tried to chip him. But thank God he comes running out. And then like you said, and we win the game 1-0 as well. So, yeah, that was definitely my favourite Town goal. And again, touching on the Man City thing is, and this is even my mantra, I speak to managers. I always pick managers' brains and that. And I always say, I hate draws, because I think the 3 points for a win, you could get 5 draws and be 5 games unbeaten and have 5 points, but you could have 3 wins and lose 2 and you got 9 points. And I just don't like this idea of we'll take a draw. I hate that mindset. 3 points is so massive. And like you said, I can remember Peter Beardsley playing. Was it Joe Roll's first game?
It was.
Yeah, Joe Roll.
Cool, yeah.
And we had the great yellow and black kit, one of my favourite kits. And was it the yellow? Yeah, it was the yellow and black. Or was it the orange? It was one of the... Yeah, I think Stockport was orange.
Cream and black one, yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, at this time, it was Matt Holland who used to make the box, and I'm meant to be dictating the play. And because it was 1-0 in the last minute, I just thought, we're going for the win here. Stuff this. And I could hear George going, you little shit, That's just like, no, we're going for the win. And then, like I said, Bobby ripped someone down the line and he cuts it back, and that was an instinctive finish. Didn't have time to think, just got good contact, and I can remember that game. So me and Gus, we sprint down to the other side to where our fans are.
I was in the stand, Kieron.
And I start doing this dance like this, me and Gus. And because we were in our own half, they've now took the kick off. The ref like, we're not waiting for this. And George is going, honestly, when the final whistle goes, he goes absolutely mad. You big time pricks and all this. I just thought I'd scored the winner at Main Road. That's nothing to do with big time, but yeah, they were great days. What we had a good team, like I said. I was blessed to play with some fantastic players at Ipswich, and I've always said that, and I hate to admit it to him, but Jim Magilton was just the best Ipswich Town player I played with. He was a breath of fresh air. He was so infectious. He just loved football. His drive, his determination. He reminded me, I don't know if players who probably didn't see Jim play, if they see Roy Keane play and how demanding he was, like I used to see Roy Keane absolutely hammer the Neville brothers, like da-da-da-da. And I'm looking at them laughing my head off, going, "You like getting some stick," but that's the winning drive that they have. And Jim, I'm not saying Jim's Roy Keane, but he had that same mentality of like he is going to drive everybody up to the standards he wants, and he doesn't accept anything lower than excellence. He used to come out some crackers to Matt Holland. So when we used to play in midfield together, he used to just go to Matt, right, you've got me and you've got Kieron. Just give us the ball. Tackle, give us the ball and get in the box. Just little things like that. And I'm going, you can't say that. Jesus Christ, like, this is Matt Holland you're talking about. He's players playing him. No. He's got to realise we'll do the ball play and he gets in the box and score goals. Stop trying to pass the ball. Let us pass the ball out. Just little things like that. He's crazy. But what a guy. But listen, I could talk about the same with Tarico, Clapham, Holland, Richard Wright. Again, like I'm talking about me underachieving my career. If you'd have told me Richard Wright wouldn't have had 100 caps for England, I'd have just laughed. What a goalkeeper he was. Like, the list goes on. Ipswich are blessed with so many good players. And that's like, and we're a level below the 70s and 80s. It's just, well, we say that, but Eric Gates, I've got a good story about Eric Gates, and I hate Philip. We'll get onto that later. But yeah, again, the 70s and 80s, I think Ipswich fans have been very, very blessed.
Kieron, before we go to Phil real quickly, can we just ask you about England? Because obviously you went in 2002 and we've got this strange situation where there's been 33 picked and it's going to be cut down to 26. Have you got any idea of, I don't know how much you keep up with the current squad, having been in it, but you can talk more to just how Southgate's going to do this and get us, down from 33 to 26, because you've already mentioned the knocking at the door. Can you give us your read on England in the Euros?
I think why he's probably picked so many is obviously there's a big doubt about Maguire. That's why I think Ben White's come in. I think it's also a good experience to see him in that environment, because he's definitely going to be one that will play for England. Obviously, there's a big doubt over Jordan Henderson. There's a big doubt about the 4 right backs. That's a tough dilemma. But I think Gareth Southgate's been very blessed where squads are usually 23 players, that is 26 players. So I don't think there'll be any shocks. I think Jordan Henderson will make the squad. I think Jack Grealish will make the squad. I think even all 4 right backs might make the squad. I really do, because it's been well documented that Trippier can play as left back. I think Kyle Walker can play as one of the centre halves in a 3. So can Reece James. Reece James can play midfield. Trent can play in midfield. So I just think he's covering all bases, really. But yeah, the England squad is very, very stacked. I just worry about the centre half position. I know we could say we've got a vested interest because of the Tyrone Mings connection, but when I was playing for England, the centre halves at our disposal was just on a different planet. No disrespect to the current players, but we had Rio, John Terry, Sol Campbell, Jonathan Woodgate, Ledley King, Jamie Carragher, Gareth Southgate, Martin Keown, Tony Adams. Just like, wow. And now we're talking about we might be going in with Harry Maguire, John Stones, and then you look after that and you're like, they're all very good players in their own right, but would you fancy them against Portugal with Fernandes and Ronaldo and all these guys, Bernardo Silva? It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, but I think we're very adaptable. I think that if Jordan Henderson's fit, I think if we've got a protection of Declan Rice and Jordan Henderson sitting in front of a back four or a back three, that is real protection. And just let our ball winners. The gaffer, Paul Cook, says here, we need flair players. We need players that score goals and have numbers, and England have got that in abundance. You just look at it. How do you pick a front five out of them players? Obviously, everyone's talking about Foden at the moment. I'm a big fan of Grealish. You've got Rashford, you've got Sterling, you've got Harry, you've got Sancho, just Mason Mount. It's just exciting times for England. I just wish we had a few more centre halves.
So we're losing the quarterfinals again then.
Yeah, but like you said, we might just say, you know what, we'll have a low block, have Jordan Henderson and Declan Rice probably running about 16k, doing the ugly side of the game, and with our attacking players, we can definitely be a counter-attacking team as well. So,
Kieron, absolutely brilliant memories.
Thanks for watching or listening to the Blue Monday podcast. And thanks to those of you who have kindly supported the channel via Acast or YouTube donations. You can follow us at the usual places on social media, and don't forget to subscribe so that you get our new shows first.